What happens when a billionaire loses everything? His company, his status, his pride, just for a girl selling coffee on the street? She didn't want his money, she wanted his respect. And when he showed up pushing her old cart in the middle of a snowstorm, the world saw a different kind of love story unfold. One where pride melts, hearts open, and second chances brew fresh. If this story made you believe that love is more about action than words, don't scroll away. Hit the like button, leave a comment with your favorite moment, and share this video with someone who still believes in real love. And if you're ready for more stories that hit you right in the heart, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Because the next story might just be yours. It was barely 6 a.m., and Manhattan hadn't woken up yet. The wind cut down the avenues like a blade, slicing through even the thickest coats. Most people were still tucked under warm blankets. But Ella Parker, 23, had already been up for 2 hours, assembling her battered, custom-made coffee cart and rolling it to the corner of Wall Street and Hanover Square, where the bankers came rushing in just after sunrise. Her fingers were numb from the cold, but her mind was sharp. She didn't sell coffee, she survived on it, $5 at a time. Double espresso, no cream, $3.50, she called, her breath visible in the air. Strong enough to wake your boss before you quit. As the line of early risers began to form, a black SUV rolled up fast, screeched to a stop, and out stepped Caleb Morgan, 35, CEO of Morgan Tech, the kind of man who didn't walk. He moved through space like he owned it. Crisp charcoal suit, leather gloves, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders. Time was money, and his was worth billions. But life has a funny way of leveling people. Just as Caleb pivoted toward the Morgan Tech building, Ella stepped back from her cart, juggling a tray of fresh coffee cups, and slammed directly into him. Splash! The entire front of his tailored wool coat was soaked in steaming coffee. The smell of burnt roast and cinnamon filled the air. Caleb froze mid-sentence, slowly lowered his phone. His jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea how much this coat costs?" Ella blinked, stunned, but only for a second. She looked him dead in the eyes. "I don't, but I know it doesn't cost your dignity." The street went silent for a moment. A man in a suit behind them let out a quiet, "Whoa." Caleb stepped back, inspecting the brown stain spreading across his chest. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "Accidents happen," Ella said, not flinching. "But if you need to yell at someone to feel powerful, I'm not your girl." Caleb stared at her. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't shrinking away. She stood tall, jeans faded, hoodie frayed, a fingerless glove on one hand gripping the tray like a shield. Her cart wobbled behind her, steam still rising from the urn. He took a breath. "You know who I am?" "I know you just spilled more ego than I spilled coffee," she shot back. That one hit. Caleb didn't respond. Instead, he turned to leave, but stopped after 2 steps. He looked back. Ella had already moved on, taking orders again like the interaction never happened. "Americano, no sugar, got it," she said to the next customer with a bright smile. But Caleb kept watching her for a moment longer than he should have. Something about her didn't match the city. She wasn't afraid, she wasn't fake, and she didn't care that she just insulted one of New York's most powerful men. Back in the SUV, his assistant asked, "Mr. Morgan, should we get the coat replaced before the investor call?" Caleb didn't answer right away. Through the window, he caught one last glimpse of Ella, pouring coffee with speed and precision, sleeves pushed up, hair tied in a messy ponytail, a tiny Bluetooth speaker playing low-volume soul music. He finally said, "No, leave it." As the car pulled away, Ella caught the reflection of the black SUV disappearing into traffic. She didn't know who he was, but she knew what he represented: men with too much power and not enough humility. She shrugged, shook her head, and called out, "Next in line!" But deep down, something about him had irritated her more than usual. And though she didn't want to admit it, he looked back. That morning, they had no idea. But a spilled cup of coffee on a freezing New York street was about to change both of their lives forever. The next morning, Caleb Morgan stood in front of the mirror, tying the same black tie he always wore. His assistants were already texting updates. Meetings, contracts, new AI integrations. His calendar was stacked from sunrise to midnight. And yet, at 6:07 a.m., he wasn't heading to the office. He was headed back to that same corner. He told himself it was just for coffee, a change of routine, nothing more. But the moment he spotted the small, beat-up coffee cart and Ella Parker behind it, flipping cups with one hand and counting cash with the other, he knew that was a lie. This time, he didn't say anything, just walked up, hands in his pockets, and waited in line like everyone else. When it was his turn, she didn't even flinch. "You again?" she said flatly, grabbing a cup. "Let me guess. Double espresso, no cream, extra control issues?" He smirked. "That's the one." She handed him the cup. He handed her a crisp $100 bill. She didn't smile, didn't thank him. She calmly reached into the cash box, counted 96.50 in change, and held it out to him. He looked down. "Keep it." Ella narrowed her eyes. "Why?" Caleb shrugged. "It's good coffee." "No," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's decent coffee. This isn't a charity booth. If you want to make a donation, there's a soup kitchen 2 blocks down." He hesitated, then took the change. Every cent. The next morning, he came back, and the next, again, always the same order, always the same $100 bill, and always she gave him back the exact change. On the 5th morning, she finally asked, "So, are you planning to buy the cart next? Or are we just doing this dance until your ego gets bored?" Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Does it bother you?" "What bothers me," she said, slamming the lid on a thermos, "is men thinking they can solve everything with money. It's boring." That word hit harder than expected. Boring. He wasn't used to being dismissed. People didn't tell him no. They didn't challenge him. But Ella? She wasn't impressed. She wasn't flattered. She didn't flirt, didn't smile, didn't even care who he was. It was infuriating and addictive. On the 7th visit, it rained. Not a light drizzle, a downpour. Most vendors vanished, but Ella stood there under a leaky tarp, sleeves rolled, hands frozen red, steam rising from the urn. Caleb pulled up in his car, window down. "You should close up." Ella didn't even look over. "And miss all this glamorous weather?" "I'm serious," he said. "You'll get sick." She turned then, rain dripping down her forehead. "I don't have the luxury of staying home just because the sky's having a tantrum. Some of us have bills." He got out of the car. Rain soaked his coat in seconds. She blinked. "Did you seriously just step out in a Hugo Boss jacket to prove a point?" "No," he said, handing her a new umbrella he'd brought. "I just figured since you refused to take tips, I might as well offer shade." She stared at him. "Still trying to buy me?" she asked. "No," Caleb said. "Just trying to understand why I keep coming back." Ella took the umbrella, slowly, hesitantly. She muttered, "If you want to impress me, buy more sugar next time. We're out." Then turned away, back to her cart. Caleb stood there in the rain, watching her work, the sleeves of her sweatshirt soaked, her lips blue from the cold. But she didn't stop, didn't complain, just kept pouring coffee with fierce, focused energy. And for the first time in years, Caleb Morgan didn't feel like the richest man in the room. He got back in his car, water dripping from his collar, and told his driver, "Remind me to order a bulk shipment of sugar. Like now." That night, lying in his penthouse alone, Caleb stared at the ceiling and asked himself a question he hadn't asked in a long time. What if the one person I can't buy is the only one I want near me? But the question lingered unanswered because he knew this wasn't about coffee anymore. It never was. For a man like Caleb Morgan, solving problems was second nature. In business, when something broke, you fixed it, quietly, efficiently, without asking. And he was starting to treat Ella Parker the same way. But she wasn't a contract. She wasn't a system error. She was a human hurricane of pride and fire. And he was about to learn that the hard way. The first time Caleb saw her stumble while pushing that rusty coffee cart over a cracked curb, he clenched his jaw. The front wheel was barely holding on, wobbling with every bump. And yet, she powered through, rain, snow, traffic. Later that day, Without telling her, he called a small fabrication shop in Brooklyn, sent them specs, paid them double to reinforce the base, repair the wheel, and replace the leaky tank. The work was done overnight. When Ella showed up the next morning and saw her cart gleaming, freshly welded, and leak-free, she froze. Her first reaction wasn't joy, it was suspicion. She walked around it twice, checked the wheels, opened the burner tank, even sniffed the sealant. Someone had fixed it, but no one in her world ever gave without taking. The second hit came a few days later. Ella got a call from the university. Just confirming your next tuition installment has been received. You're now fully covered for the semester. Her heart stopped. I didn't make any payment, she stammered. It was made anonymously, the clerk replied, but your account's clear. That night, she didn't sleep. Her stomach twisted into knots. There was only one man reckless and rich, enough to do that without asking. The next morning, she didn't go to her cart. She went straight to Morgan Tech, wearing her faded jeans, hoodie, and sneakers still stained with spilled espresso. She walked through a lobby made of glass, marble, and silence. The receptionist blinked at her like she'd wandered in from the wrong universe. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he's expecting me," Ella said, voice like stone. 5 minutes later, the elevator dinged on the 32nd floor. Caleb looked up from his desk, surprised, but not enough. She walked in, tossed a white envelope onto his desk. It hit hard. "That's what you paid for my tuition," she said coldly. "Take it back." He didn't touch it. "Ella." "No," she cut him off. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to swoop in with your money and fix things that aren't broken. You were behind on payments. So," she snapped, "you think I haven't figured out how to survive? You think throwing cash at me makes you some kind of savior?" Caleb stood, calm, measured. "I wasn't trying to save you." "Then what were you trying to do?" He paused, his voice softened. "I just wanted to help." She shook her head. "Then ask. Don't sneak behind my back like I'm your charity case." He clenched his fists, but kept his voice level. "You work 14 hours a day? You barely sleep. Your shoes have holes, and your hands shake in the morning from too much caffeine and not enough food. That cart was falling apart. And you are not your project," she snapped. "I work because I have to, because I want to finish school, because I have a mother who's sick and bills that don't wait, not because I want to be rescued by some millionaire who doesn't even know how I take my coffee." That line hit him harder than he expected. They stared at each other. The tension in the air was like a cracked wire, dangerously close to sparking. After a long beat, Caleb said, "You think I did all this to control you?" "I think you did it so you wouldn't have to feel guilty about watching me struggle," Ella said, voice trembling now. "But my struggle isn't yours to own. I need to do this on my terms." She turned to leave. His voice stopped her. "You're the first person who's ever said no to me." She didn't turn back. "Then maybe you should ask yourself why that is," she said, and walked out. Back on the street, Ella's legs felt weak, but her spine stayed straight. She hated confrontation, but she hated being controlled more. And as she walked past her now shiny coffee cart, she looked at it not with pride, but with conflict. He meant well, but he didn't understand, yet, because Caleb Morgan was used to fixing everything, and she wasn't something to be fixed. But deep down, neither of them realized this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a war between pride and love, and one of them would have to give. 3 days had passed since Ella stormed into Morgan Tech and dropped that envelope like it was made of lead. Caleb hadn't tried to reach out. Not by phone, not by text, not even through his assistant, which was very unlike him. But he wasn't angry. He was intrigued. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not a single person. In his world, people bowed, agreed, adjusted themselves. "Ella?" She didn't flinch. She fired back. And the worst part? She was right. She wasn't something to be fixed. And maybe, just maybe, she was someone worth learning from. So on the 4th morning, he showed up again. She noticed him from a distance, crossing the street in a navy coat. No driver this time, no umbrella, just him, walking straight toward her like it was personal. Ella raised an eyebrow. Didn't think you'd come back after our little conversation. Caleb shrugged. Some bruises are worth it. She handed him his usual cup. Still overpriced coffee. Still no tip. He smirked. That's fine, I'm not here for the coffee today. Ella paused. Then what are you here for? There was a hesitation, slight but real. I want to take you to dinner, Caleb said simply. She blinked. What? A real one, he continued. Somewhere nice, good food, decent conversation. She laughed. It wasn't a sweet laugh. It was sharp, surprised, borderline annoyed. You're asking me out? She said, incredulous. He nodded once. Yes. She stared at him like he'd just told her the moon was on sale. Let me guess. White tablecloths? Michelin stars? A menu where the prices are missing and everyone pretends not to care. It doesn't have to be fancy, he said quickly. I just thought. She cut him off. Why? That stopped him. Why dinner? Why now? After paying off my tuition without asking, after fixing my cart behind my back, what makes you think I want to sit across from you and eat steak I can't pronounce? There was tension in her voice, not rage, not resentment, something more fragile, disappointment. Caleb took a breath. Because I want to talk to you without money between us. You think a dinner fixes that? No, he said, voice steady, but it's a start. Ella crossed her arms, eyes narrowing. I don't need a steak to feel important. I don't need linen napkins to feel seen. I don't need... She paused, then added, You, trying to impress me. Caleb didn't flinch. I'm not trying to impress you, Ella. I'm trying to understand you. She didn't blink. Then meet me at 4 a.m. when I'm hauling 30 pounds of supplies across icy sidewalks, or when I'm digging quarters out of my backpack for laundry, or when my mom calls from the clinic and I have to pretend I'm not scared. Her voice cracked, just barely. That's where you'll understand me, she finished. Not under chandeliers. Silence stretched between them, long, tense, charged. Then she turned away, picked up the next customer's order like nothing had happened. Caleb stood still. In his world, this moment was supposed to play out differently. He made the offer. The woman smiled. They got in the car. It was routine, but Ella shattered routines. He turned to leave, but halfway down the block, he stopped, looked back. She was busy, focused, talking to a woman about decaf options. The cold air wrapped around her like a second skin. Still no gloves. He didn't go back. That night, in his penthouse, he opened a bottle of wine, alone. His chef offered dinner. He declined. He wasn't hungry. All he could hear was her voice. I don't need a steak to feel important. It echoed louder than the city outside, and for the first time in Caleb Morgan's life, someone had said no. Not to his business, not to his money. To him, personally. But even more surprising, he wasn't offended. He was curious. What made Ella Parker different from every woman he'd ever known? And why the hell did her rejection make him want to see her again even more? The rumors started like smoke, quiet, drifting, but fast. It began with a blurry photo snapped by someone in a power suit standing across the street. Caleb Morgan, billionaire CEO of Morgan Tech, accepting a coffee from a street cart. Not once, not twice, every morning. And not just any street cart, Ella's. By the end of the week, the photo was all over the gossip blogs. Wall Street's Ice King melts for a coffee girl? From boardrooms to back streets. Who is the mysterious vendor Caleb keeps visiting? At first, Ella thought it would pass. A fluke, one of those things people scroll past without reading. But the next day, 3 strangers came to her cart, not for coffee, but for photos. One asked, You dating him? Another whispered, He likes him rough and real, huh? Ella's chest tightened. She brushed it off, shrugged, but it didn't stop. Then came the stares. The slow, judgmental ones from passing professionals in tailored coats who used to ignore her completely. Now they noticed her, but not in a good way. That afternoon, a black Mercedes rolled up to the curb. A woman in stilettos and a burgundy coat stepped out like she belonged to a different universe. Her hair was perfect, her lipstick even sharper. Amanda Blake, investor, public relations queen. And most importantly, Caleb's ex. Ella didn't recognize her at first, But the moment Amanda spoke, she knew. This wasn't a customer. "You must be Ella," Amanda said, voice smooth as poison. Ella didn't flinch. "You buying or just browsing?" Amanda smiled thinly. "Neither. Just curious why someone like you thinks she can play in his world." Ella set down the coffee cup she was filling. "Excuse me?" Amanda stepped closer, keeping her heels on dry sidewalk, while Ella stood half-soaked on gritty pavement. "You think because he buys your coffee, it means something? You think it's more than a passing distraction for him?" Ella stared. Amanda didn't stop. "I've seen this before. Men like Caleb, they get bored. They find a little project to make them feel alive. You're a novelty, sweetie. A down-to-earth experience. Nothing more." Ella's hands clenched. Amanda's voice dropped to a whisper. "You belong on the curb, darling, not at the table." And with that, she turned, stepped back into her car, and was gone before Ella could even breathe. That night, Ella didn't cook. She didn't sleep. She just sat in her studio apartment, staring at the ceiling. The words burned, not because they were true, but because, what if they were? She had fought so hard to stay independent, to keep her dignity intact. Even when Caleb tried to help. Even when he offered dinner. Even when he looked at her like she was the only real thing in a plastic world. But maybe Amanda was right. Maybe she was just a phase. She pulled out her phone, stared at his number, didn't call. The next morning, Caleb came by at the same time. She saw him from down the street. Tall, purposeful, coffee in mind, eyes looking for her. But this time, she wasn't there. The cart was packed. The corner was empty. Ella sat 2 blocks away on a bench under a broken streetlight, watching from a distance. Her chest felt tight, not from sadness, not from fear, from doubt. He stood at her usual spot for a full minute, looked around, checked his watch, then pulled out his phone. She ignored the call. When it rang again, she shut it off completely. By noon, the blogs had new headlines. Mysterious coffee girl disappears. Caleb left waiting alone. Street romance or PR stunt gone wrong. Ella threw her phone in her bag and pushed the cart behind a warehouse alley, heart pounding. She hated this. Not the attention, but the feeling of being small, of being out of place, of being exactly who Amanda said she was. But she also hated herself for letting it get to her. Meanwhile, Caleb sat in his office, staring at his phone. Unanswered call. He didn't understand. The last few days, he'd felt something shift. She wasn't just a girl selling coffee. She was Ella, the only person who ever looked at him and saw more than a paycheck. So why was she pulling away? His assistant knocked. "Sir, Amanda Blake is here to see you." Caleb stood slowly. "Tell her I'm busy." She said it's urgent. He clenched his jaw. "I don't care." Then he turned toward the window, watching the street below, wondering. Had the world finally gotten between them? And if so, was it too late to fix it? They called it a boardroom massacre. 1 vote, 1 signature. That's all it took for Caleb Morgan to lose the company he built from scratch. Amanda Blake, with her polished smile and ice-cold strategy, had struck exactly where it hurt. She didn't just walk away, she took the board with her. And when she sold off her shares, publicly, the message was loud and clear. Caleb Morgan is no longer fit to lead. The official reason? Lack of professional judgment, emotional compromise, reputational risk. Translation: he got too close to someone from the wrong side of the street. The news exploded like wildfire. Morgan Tech ousts CEO after romance scandal. Coffee, cart girl, costs billionaire. His empire? The media didn't care about truth. They cared about clicks. Reporters camped outside Caleb's building. Paparazzi followed him into parking garages. Online trolls dragged his name through every gutter they could find. He stopped answering his phone, stopped checking email. Friends vanished. Even his doorman stopped making eye contact. For the first time in years, Caleb was completely alone. The penthouse felt cold, sterile. He sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan's skyline burn gold in the evening sun. But it meant nothing. He had everything, then nothing, all in 3 days. And the worst part? He didn't care about the company. He cared that Ella was gone. No more morning sarcasm, no more small smiles when she handed him his cup, no more arguments that left him thinking about her voice long after she walked away. He missed her, but he didn't blame her. He blamed himself. He'd let the world interfere, let people like Amanda twist something real into something shameful. And now, he had nothing left to offer Ella but a name that was quickly turning worthless. The next morning, he didn't leave the apartment. He didn't shower. Barefoot, unshaven, he sat on the floor beside the couch, still wearing yesterday's shirt. That's when he heard it. A knock. He paused, didn't move. Then another. Sighing, he opened the door. And frozen. Standing in the hallway was Ella Parker. Wind-blown hair, a scarf wrapped hastily around her neck. In one hand, a white paper cup with his name written on it in bold black marker. She didn't smile. She didn't ask questions. She just held it out and said softly, "You still take double espresso, right?" Caleb blinked. Of all the things he'd expected, this wasn't it. He took the cup. His hand brushed hers. It felt warm. "You came," he whispered. "I saw the news," she replied. Didn't believe most of it. Didn't care about the rest. He looked down. "I lost everything." She tilted her head. "Did you really?" He chuckled bitterly. "I lost the company. My name's a joke. I'm being eaten alive out there." "And yet," she said, "you're still here, still drinking coffee." He laughed, a real one this time. Short, cracked, but real. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know," she answered. "Why did you?" Ella met his eyes. "Because when I was nothing, you still saw me. And now that you feel like nothing, I just wanted you to know I still see you." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full, real. Caleb nodded slowly. "I was stupid. I should have protected you. Should have stood up to Amanda. To all of them." Ella stepped forward. "I never needed you to fight for me, Caleb. I just needed you to stand with me." He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time again. And maybe that was exactly what he needed. They sat on the floor that morning. No suits, no headlines, just coffee. She told him about her finals. He told her about the board's betrayal. They didn't talk about fixing anything. They just were, together. And for the first time in weeks, Caleb didn't feel like a failure. He felt human. And as the sun broke through the gray clouds outside, warming the edges of his broken world, he realized something. Maybe losing everything had led him to the one thing worth holding on to. 2 weeks later, the headlines had cooled. The noise faded. The gossip blogs moved on. But something else was brewing. Quietly, intentionally. Not in a boardroom. Not in a press release. But inside a cozy, brick-walled corner shop on 7th and Green, where the smell of fresh espresso replaced the stench of corporate betrayal. That's where Ella Parker stood, holding a key in one hand and a dream in the other. She looked at the freshly painted sign above the glass door. The second shot. Beneath it, in smaller font, "Everyone deserves one." She smiled. Behind her, Caleb adjusted the shelves for the 4th time that morning, clearly uncomfortable with how uneven they looked, but pretending like he wasn't obsessing. "Stop rearranging the mugs," Ella teased, walking over. "It's a coffee shop, not a chemistry lab." "I'm just saying," he muttered. "If you put the lighter cups on the left, it balances the shelf visually." Ella grinned. "You're not CEO anymore, remember?" Caleb turned to her. "That's where you're wrong." She raised an eyebrow. He smiled, stepped closer, and whispered, "I'm your COO now, Chief of Overthinking." Ella rolled her eyes, but she couldn't stop the laughter. They had started with $4,200, her entire savings from years of 5 a.m. shifts. Caleb offered to match it, but she refused. "You've already given me enough," she'd said. "Let me give something back." So he gave something else instead. His time, his ideas, his name, when needed. Together, they found an old laundromat space and turned it into something warm, something honest, a place where people mattered more than profits. But the real magic? They hired differently. Every barista at the second shot had a story. Jared, a veteran who'd lived in his car for 6 months. Maria, a single mom who hadn't worked since being laid off during the pandemic. Devon, a recovering addict with shaky hands but a sharp memory for espresso ratios. They weren't charity. They were crew. Caleb trained them himself, not just how to pull shots or steam milk, but how to hold their heads up when customers talked down. Ella handled the vibe, the music, the heart. They didn't advertise. But word got out fast. Local news stations caught wind of the ex-billionaire making lattes in a hoodie and sneakers. Former tech CEO flips the script, serving coffee, not stocks. From power suits to pour-overs, Caleb Morgan's new life. But the most powerful coverage wasn't about Caleb. It was about the name. The Second Shot. People started posting about it. A place that didn't care where you came from, just where you were going. Customers left handwritten notes on the walls. My second shot came after rehab. This place reminds me to keep going. I lost my job last month. Thanks for the free cup and real smile. Met my birth mom today. Needed this coffee more than you know. Ella kept every note in a box behind the counter. One morning, she opened it and found something new inside. A small, folded receipt, with Caleb's handwriting on the back. My second shot wasn't this place. It was you. She blinked, swallowed hard, looked up, and there he was, wiping tables like it was the most important thing in the world. Maybe it was. They never talked about rebuilding his empire. That life felt like a different universe. This one felt real. And slowly, the city that once tore them apart was starting to root for them. Customers lined up not because of fame, but because of warmth. People came for the coffee, stayed for the people. And at the end of each shift, when the sign flipped to closed, Ella would lock the door, lean on the counter and say, "We really did this, didn't we?" And Caleb would answer the same way every time. "Yeah, and we're just getting started." It happened on a Thursday night, quiet, breezy, with the city humming low in the background. The second shot had just closed. The chairs were stacked, the espresso machine wiped down, and the lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. Ella was sweeping near the front window when Caleb called her name. She turned and froze. He was standing right where they first met, right under the street lamp outside, holding something small in his hand, a ring box. Her heart skipped, then raced. He didn't say anything flashy. No rehearsed speech, no grand theatrics. Just looked at her, eyes steady, and said, "You changed me, Ella. You reminded me what it means to earn something real, to be something real. I don't want to go back to the world I came from unless it includes you, so will you marry me?" It was raw, simple, honest. And she stood there frozen. Not because she didn't love him. She did, more than anything. But as her hands trembled, she whispered, "Caleb, I love you. God, I love you. But I'm not ready." His brows knit together. "What do you mean?" Her voice cracked. "I've spent my whole life fighting to stay grounded. I worked every shift scared rent wouldn't be enough. I built walls around my heart so no one could walk in and take it without earning it. I finally feel like I belong somewhere. And this world of marriage, headlines, expectations, it still terrifies me." He didn't speak, didn't move. She continued, softer now. "You're not the man you were a year ago. And I'm not the girl behind a cart anymore. But I need time to grow into the woman who's not scared of standing beside you, not hiding behind you." Caleb swallowed hard. His fingers slowly closed the ring box. Pain flickered in his eyes. But no anger, no resentment, just understanding. After a long beat, he stepped forward, brushed her cheek gently with his hand, and whispered, "Then I won't ask you to step into my world anymore. I'll step into yours." Ella blinked fast, trying to hold back tears. She leaned into his hand, resting her forehead against his. There was no kiss, just silence, heavy, full, and something stronger than any yes could offer. A promise that no matter what came next, he wasn't walking away, not again. And as they stood in the middle of the empty coffee shop, surrounded by dreams they built from the ground up, the city outside kept moving, but inside, everything stood still, because real love doesn't always come with perfect timing. Sometimes, it just comes with someone willing to wait. The next morning, Ella thought she'd imagined the whole thing. The late-night proposal, her trembling voice, his promise to step into her world instead of pulling her into his. But when she stepped outside, bundled in a thick scarf and wool beanie, brushing snow off her boots, what she saw stopped her cold, literally and emotionally. There he was, Caleb Morgan, ex-CEO of Morgan Tech, once worth over $800 million. Now, pushing a hand-welded, steel-framed coffee cart. Her old cart, the one she'd used for years. Caleb stood on the same corner she once worked, steam rising from the cart's vent, his breath visible in the freezing New York air. He wasn't wearing his fancy cashmere coat or designer gloves, just a puffer jacket, a thermos tucked under his arm, and his sleeves rolled up like a real street vendor. Fresh hot coffee, double shot espresso, just like she made it. Morning pick-me-up, guaranteed to taste like a second chance. His voice cracked through the chill, loud, cheerful, awkward, but persistent. Ella blinked, twice, then walked straight up to him. "What the hell are you doing?" She half laughed, half scolded. He grinned, handing a cup to a passing cyclist. "You said you weren't ready to step into my world, so I figured I'd spend some time in yours." "You're insane," she whispered. "You already knew that," he replied, holding up a gloved hand coated in spilled mocha foam. "I burned 3 fingers this morning and spilled 2 gallons of milk. I totally get why you hated this cart." A man in a hoodie passed by, tossed him a $5 bill, and patted his shoulder. "Best damn coffee I've had since my divorce. Keep it up, man." Caleb winked. "Divorce blend. Extra bitter, no sugar." Ella couldn't help it. She laughed. Not the polite kind. A real laugh. The kind that shakes loose the fear in your chest. And that's when she saw it. He wasn't pretending. He was actually learning. He'd memorized her regulars' orders. He cleaned the cart exactly how she used to. He used her old sign. Strong coffee, soft heart. She reached for the cart, ran her fingers over the rusted edges, the tape still holding one of the wheels steady. So many mornings she'd thought this cart was all she'd ever be. And now, this man, this once untouchable, powerful man, was grounding himself where she once stood. "Why?" she asked quietly, eyes glassy. "Why go through all this?" Caleb stepped closer, the street noise blurring around them. "Because I don't just love you, Ella. I respect you, and I'd rather build something messy and real with you on a sidewalk than anything perfect and hollow without you in a penthouse." She didn't answer, not with words. She took the cup he'd just poured, raised it in a toast, and whispered, "Then I'll learn to live in your world, Buasasha, too." The next week, the city saw something they didn't expect. Caleb and Ella, side by side at the second shot, serving coffee with calloused hands and genuine smiles. No more power games, no more walls. Just 2 people who met in chaos, healed in struggle, and chose each other in snow. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She kissed him, right there on the corner where it all began. Because love, when tested, doesn't break. It builds. The Second Shot Café had never looked more alive. Twinkling string lights hung across the windows, weaving between coffee grinders and handwritten chalkboards. A simple white sheet covered the old espresso cart, the same cart where everything began. And instead of a red carpet, they rolled out a faded rug someone donated from a thrift store down the block. This wasn't a wedding for headlines. No gold-foiled invitations, no celebrity guest list, no paparazzi behind tinted glass. Just friends, neighbors, baristas in aprons, and 2 people who finally chose each other, without fear. Caleb stood at the front of the shop in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled, hands slightly trembling. His hair was still damp. He'd spent the morning fixing the leaky pipe under the sink before getting dressed. Ella stepped out from behind the kitchen, barefoot, wearing a plain white dress that flowed just below her knees. No veil, no bouquet, but she glowed like morning light in the first hour of peace. As she walked toward him, she whispered to her best friend, "This is the first time I've ever walked toward something without wondering what I'd lose." They didn't hire an officiant. A local librarian who used to stop by every morning for black coffee did the honors. "Do you, Caleb Morgan," she read from a coffee-stained note card, Promise to never stop learning how to be soft without losing your strength? Caleb grinned and answered, Absolutely. And you, Ella Parker, do you promise to believe that you're worthy of love, not just for what you've survived, but for who you are? Ella's eyes shimmered. Yes, every day. The room clapped, some cried, and someone in the back accidentally hit the milk steamer, sending a hiss of foam into the air like confetti. Caleb reached for Ella's hands and looked straight into her eyes. You didn't change for me, he said. You opened your heart. That was always enough. Ella smirked, pulling him closer. You know what, Mr. Coffee Cart Apprentice? You're like the first sip of black coffee. Bitter, bold, but exactly what I need to wake up to. Laughter filled the room, and then they kissed. Not like fairy tales, like real people. Messy, honest, needed. Afterward, they served espresso to every guest. They toasted with iced lattes instead of champagne. And the cake? It was made from 3 layers of chocolate muffins Ella had baked the night before. Imperfect, cracked, still warm. Just like their journey. And as they closed shop that evening, locking the door behind them, they didn't drive off in a limo or hop on a private jet. They sat on the curb outside, sharing one last coffee for the night, hand in hand. Because some love stories don't need castles. Just courage, a cart, and someone willing to stay through every season. In a world where success is often measured by money, titles, and material gain, this story reminds us that the most valuable currency is character. Ella didn't need a rich man, she needed a real one. And Caleb didn't win her heart by flaunting power, but by showing humility, effort, and respect. Their journey teaches us that love worth keeping requires vulnerability, not perfection, action, not promises. It also highlights that second chances aren't just given, they're earned, one act of sincerity at a time. Whether you're building a business, a relationship, or a new life, integrity, kindness, and resilience will always matter more than status. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments, what lesson hit you hardest? What would you do if you were in Ella or Caleb's shoes? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories that stay with you long after the screen fades.